Hello from Blue Willow Bookshop in Houston, Texas, and thank you to my colleague Caroline who got that beautiful music to play. I am Kathy Berner. I'm the event coordinator here at the shop, and we are so excited to host this virtual event for Karen Walrond. Hosting, we're hosting Karen, and we're celebrating her new book, The Radiant Rebellion. A friendly reminder that there will be a toast later in the event, so if you need to get a celebratory beverage, now is the time to do it. Please join me in welcoming one of Blue Willow's dearest friends, Karen Walrond, to the screen.
Woohoo! Yay! Hi, everyone. Oh my gosh, it's so good to see you, Kathy. Of
It is so
course.
good to see you too. And I was so excited for the music. I sit on an exercise ball at my desk. So I was,
I was. J-Lo will do that to you, right?
yes, she will. She
Yeah,
absolutely will.
I am so thrilled to be here, and I'm seeing a lot of really familiar faces in the attendee list. So thank you guys so much for coming. I'm just incredibly moved you're here. This has been quite the joyride, really, the joyride. That's exactly what it is, since the book has come out, and I'm just so excited. So I think what I'll do is I'll just kind of get started, if that's okay, with like how the book came to be, right? So oh, don't forget, guys, if you have any questions, just as Kathy said, if you have any questions, hit the Q&A button and we will get to your questions later on in the show. But so I wrote this book in 2022. Is that right? We're in 2023, right? So I wrote it in 2022, which was a really big year for me because it was the year that I turned 55, that my marriage turned 20, and our daughter turned 18 and graduated high school and went to college. And what I was finding was that anytime I told people that this was what was happening, like the only thing they seemed to be happy about was the 20-year marriage. Like everybody was like, oh, 55, double nickel, how you feel about that? Or oh, your kid's 18, leaving leaving home, are you okay with that? Going out empty nesting? And it was such a strange, weird thing. Exactly. It was such a strange thing because I was like, that was the goal. Like the goal was to get her excited about college and excited to going off to school. So I really wanted to sort of explore really two things. One was I wanted to really sort of tell people that growing older is not as horrible as the world would have you believe. But also, there was this sort of nagging voice in the back of my head that was like, oh my God, what if the world is right? And it just hasn't hit me yet. So I wanted to interview people and go, I'm going to interview experts, either people who age really well, in my opinion, or who have some sort of expertise in some aspect of aging, like health or spirituality or whatever, and see what advice they had and see how I could implement that in my life. And so that's what the book ended up being. So what I think I will do is I will just read the first page and a half so that if you haven't seen the book, you can kind of get an idea of what the book is going to feel like. Because I have a feeling it's not like a lot of books about aging that you may have read. So I'm reading the very first page. It's chapter 1, Call for Revolution. A funny thing happens when you tell people you're writing a book about joyful aging. First, their eyes widen. Joyful aging, they repeat softly, as something resembling relief washes over their faces. Oh, I need to read that book. Their heartfelt reactions invariably make me smile. But before I can even formulate a response, their eyes narrow and they add some version of the following. Well, I hope you'll tackle chronic disease. You'll address how our looks fade, right? What it's like to lose our attractiveness and how people don't notice us anymore, the ways that our bodies deteriorate. I cannot wait to read this book because all I can think about is how I'm running out of time. So I'm going to begin with the disclaimer. If you expect these pages to be filled with anecdotes of age-related decline or misery and depression associated with advancing years, then I'm afraid you're going to be woefully disappointed. I'll instead refer you to the thousands of books and articles available everywhere that focus on all the reasons to fear getting older. But be warned, long-form writing and blog posts with titles like 10 Reasons Why Getting Old Sucks will probably make you feel worse. Even ostensibly funny books like I Feel Bad About My Neck, the national bestseller by the late great Nora Ephron, devolve into gallows humor? That's another thing about being a certain age that I've noticed, she muses. I try as much as possible not to look in the mirror. If I pass a mirror, I avert my eyes. And if I must look into it, I begin by squinting so that if anything really bad is looking back at me, I'm already halfway to closing my eyes to ward off the sight. Our first instinct might be to laugh. Our second might be to wonder what the hell it is we're actually laughing at. But maybe you're hungry for something different. Perhaps, contrary to the messaging around us, you notice that many people your age or older are leading active, purposeful, and joyful lives. Maybe, when you consider the challenges that will inevitably arise in your coming years, you're pretty certain you'll figure out a way to weather them. After all, you've overcome obstacles in the past. Perhaps you dare to believe it's possible to view aging as a full of potential evolution of who you are today. And maybe you have a sneaking suspicion that the bleak views of aging can't possibly all be true. If this sounds like you, or if you really, really wish it sounded like you, well, then welcome, kindred spirit. Read on. So that's how it starts. And that gives you an idea of how excited I am about getting older. And so what I'd like to do to move on is I want to celebrate our birthdays. And the reason I want to do that is because I think that the rule that you have to celebrate your birthday on the anniversary of your birth, I don't know who made that up. I think we should be able to celebrate our birthdays whenever we want. So I'm going to invite you guys to go into the chat. And what I'd like you to do is type what decade you're in, whether you're a teenager, your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, and 50s, and say what the best thing about being in that decade is. All right. So Jet goes, there are 364 unbirthdays every year. Damn too. So what do you guys think? Like whatever age, like I'm in my 50s, and one of the best things about being in my 50s is the freedom that comes with an empty nest. That's one thing. What about you, Kathy? Do you have?
Well, we are the exact same age, as we
Yes,
know.
we are.
I think that is a great one, but also caring a whole lot less about what other people think.
I love that. That's right. That's exactly right. Oh, Kathy.
Oh, I love the way Trina said that too. The courage to
I'm in the
use.
50s to have the courage to use my voice. Yes. Kathy is the best thing has been exploring new interests like writing creatively. I love that. Anybody else? You guys can be brave. We're about to toast all of these. 45 and child free. Hello.
Free to pivot. Reevaluate.
I love it. I love it. To be completely reevaluated. I've completely reevaluated all your previously held filters. Great. Beginning your 75th. That's fantastic. Oh, began it. Happy birthday. The best thing has been finding your true self and celebrating every day. Addie says she started in her 40 so far. The best thing is just starting over, right? There's something about, there's a time when you sort of feel like you're starting over. I love the openness. Ellen, I love that phrase, the openness, not the empty nest. I'm so using that.
Yeah, I think I am too.
That's amazing. More time and space to follow long-held dreams. Asha, yes. 50s, no more are you going to have kids unless you're my parents, and then you're still ever going to ask that. I'm in my 40s. The best thing's living my purpose. Oh, I love this. Oh my gosh, thank you guys so much. All right, so everybody raise your glass and let's toast to, hang on, we're going to toast to unbirthdays and exploring new interests and having the courage to use your voice and being child free and pivoting and reevaluating previously held filters and celebrating your true self every day and starting over and openness and following long held dreams and not having to worry about having kids again and living your purpose on your own terms and being yourself and freedom not to compete at every level. Happy birthday, everyone. Cheers.
Happy birthday.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's so lovely. And okay. Yeah, go ahead, Kathy. What were you going to say?
So first of all, I love what everybody had to say because, and the way that for many people, the sentiment is the same, but it's expressed in so many different powerful ways.
Mm-hmm.
I really love
it's so funny. And it's really interesting. So everybody, we had an in-person event at Blue Willow 2 weeks ago, I guess,
Two
or
weeks ago.
coming up on 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
And we had people from every age between, I believe, 20s to their 80s,
Yeah.
right? Because my parents were there. So
Yes, they
their
were.
80s. And it was so interesting what things changed, right? Like their 20s were like, oh, well, I'm starting to feel like I'm a grown up. And 30s are like, I'm starting to like feel like it. And 40s were like, I'm starting to not give an F. I think I'm beginning to not give an F. And then 50s are like, knowing I don't have to give an F. And the 60s was like, knowing I don't have to give an F about not giving an F. And like, it was so funny how things had sort of just evolved, right? And
Absolutely.
we got to be see sort of the evolution of life. And that's really the point, right? Society would have you to believe that there's some certain age where you get to it and then it's declining after that, where what every single person said in the room, there was something really wonderful from their 20s to their 80s in
Yeah.
that room, that there was something to get excited about. And that is really sort of the what I wanted to capture, that feeling in the book, for
And you
sure.
did it. You
Oh,
absolutely did it.
thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
So, did we always, as a society, did we always hate aging?
Yeah, that was like my favorite question to answer in this book when I first started doing this. A really good friend of mine asked that question just as I started writing, like, why did we hate aging? And this is a friend who doesn't hate aging, just like me. Um, and so I went out to look for that, and I found the research of a Dr. Laura Hirschmind, who is a psychiatrist and medical historian. And she wanted to know whether or not we always hated aging. And so what she decided to do was look at popular magazines at the turn of the 20th century, because she figured if popular magazines write about aging, they would write capturing the sort of zeitgeist of what people felt about that. And what she found was that at the very beginning of the 20th century, most articles about aging were written by people who were in advanced years, in their 80s and 90s, 70s, 80s, 90s. And they loved it. They were like, aging is awesome. It's great. I get to be the keeper of traditions and the holder of the stories. And yeah, okay, my knee hurts, but that's so like minor compared to all the really wonderful things that getting older has given me. Fast forward to two world wars and a Great Depression, and all these 80s, 70s, 80s, and 90s-year-olds who were still working, the US government thought, well, we've got these 30-year-old men who can't get jobs, right, because of the war and the Great Depression. So we're going to try to get these older people out of the workforce by instituting a mandatory retirement age of 65 so that 30-year-olds could continue working, right? So now these people over 65 are not contributing to the economy, and so they're seen as a burden, right? So now what are we going to do? Now aging's a problem. So child psychiatrists and pediatricians decide to expand their research into a new field called geriatrics, which didn't exist at that time. And they used as their standard of normalcy 5-year-olds. So if you weren't as cognitively quick as a 5-year-old or as agile as a 5-year-old, you were impaired. And so they began starting writing the articles, right, about how impaired you get when you get older and older, right? So now, not only are people older not contributing to society and they're impaired, right? You can't let people know you're getting older, so enter Clairol. And Clairol came in and decided, okay, well, you got to hide that you're getting older, so it's time to start dyeing your hair. And that's really opened the gates to a now $1 trillion
Trillion.
anti-aging, trillion with a T, $1 trillion anti-aging industry that preys on what age? 24-year-olds. That's the target age for anti-aging products, right? So 5 years past your teenage years, they're coming for you to try to make you feel bad about aging. And that's why, by the way, all of that happened between 1900 and 1950. So in 50 years, we went from loving it to now aging being a problem. And that is why the world would like to have you believe that aging is an awful, awful thing and that you have to fix. And by the way, just give us your money. We'll show you how to fix it.
Ugh. So before I ask you a couple more questions, I do want to play off something that Catherine put in the chat, which is
Yeah.
so wonderful to finally hear the voice behind the words in Radiant Rebellion and Lightmaker's Manifesto, which reminds me, did the audiobook receive some sort of recognition, Karen?
Is that not crazy? Yes, the Radiant Rebellion received the Earphones Award from Audiophile magazine, which is it's so funny because, every now and then somebody will say, "Oh, Karen, you won an award." And it's actually not like a bona fide award. It's more they want me to sort of amplify their profile by saying, "Oh, I
Right.
won this award." Well, Audiophile, they are the people behind the Audies, AUDIES, which is sort of the Oscars of voice actors, right? For audiobooks. And so I won an earphones award, which is bananas because this was only my second book that I've ever narrated. So yes. So yeah, grab the book and you can hear my voice.
Yes, it is so, well, you do have a lovely voice. It's always a pleasure
Thank
to
you.
visit with you and hear you talk. So
Thank you.
exciting. Oh, look at that. Trina's got both print and audiobook. Well done,
Thank
Trina.
you, Trina.
So moving back to the Q&A, how do you say joyful with aging? Because now, now this industry has told us we're not supposed to be happy about it.
Yeah. So the way that I like to describe it, after I learned that, and also learned the fact that the World Health Organization actually in 2021 just started this whole 10-year initiative to combat aging, and they call it like a scourge that literally impacts economies to billions of dollars a year, to the tune of billions of dollars a year. It was like in The Matrix when Neo took the red pill. Like suddenly I couldn't unsee it, right? Like I could start seeing. So what I tell people, um, well, the book talks about some of the things that I've done for myself about sort of interrogating myself and my own ageism. Um, and some of the things are things that are definitely for me. Some of the things are really things that I hope all people do. So, like, for example, I stopped dyeing my hair. I'm not here to tell everybody to stop dyeing their hair, right? Like, if you want to stop dyeing it, dye it. If not, don't. Whatever makes you feel great, seriously. But the one thing I would do, the first thing I would do is start interrogating our own language, right? Um, a wonderful woman who I interviewed, Ashton Applewhite, she's an anti-ageism activist, and she was the one who taught me how ageist I was, because we all are, right? We've been steeped in ageist things since we were reading about the old witch in our fairy tales, right? So
Right.
we've been steeped in this sort of language. And she told me, she goes, you have to be careful about the ways you use young and old. And me being very, very smug, thinking I'm going to teach the world about aging's no big deal. And I'm a lawyer who worked in age discrimination cases and didn't think I was ageist, was like, I don't understand what you mean. What do you mean young, the way we use young and old? And she said, well, for example, I hear people say all the time, I don't feel old. And I said, yeah, I say that all the time myself. Like, I don't feel old. Why is that bad? And she said, well, I suspect when you say I don't feel old, what you're really saying is I don't feel invisible or I don't feel unsexy. And she goes, and I don't know about you, but when I was 13, I had spells where I felt invisible and unsexy. She goes, those aren't age related words. And it was just like I had, I didn't even think about that. So we don't even think about the fact that oftentimes we use the word old as shorthand for bad and young as shorthand for good.
Right.
And so really sort of interrogating how you use that language. And, for example, one of the things that people love to tell people is like, oh my gosh, happy birthday, you don't look your age, right? Or you can't possibly be that old, you don't look it, right? And it's like, well, I am. And also, like, I'm 56 right now. I'm like, this is what 56 looks like on me. So I look my age, right? Like we all look our ages, right? And the thing about the look your age thing is that, and this was something I learned from Ashton as well, is the older we get, the more dissimilar we get. So 5-year-olds have more in common than 15-year-olds, than 25-year-olds, than
Oh,
35 year
yeah,
olds,
yeah,
than
yeah, yeah,
85 year
yeah.
olds, because we are all like, we have different bodies, one, but also we have different experiences. We have different
Right.
education. We have different, yeah. So all of that impacts everything. So to even generalize that older people are like that, or 60-year-olds or 50-year-olds or 30-year-olds are all like this, is problematic because we are really becoming more and more diverse, right? So that's
Yeah.
one thing. Examine your language. The second thing is really interrogate where you're putting your money. So, for example, like I said, I'm not saying that you need to ditch the dye or ditch the face creams or anything else like that, for sure. But like, if you if you're buying a pot of cream and it says gets rid of the fine lines and wrinkles, right? Like if you continue to buy the cream because it makes your skin feel good, then go for it. But if you're buying it because you want to get rid of the fine lines and wrinkles, just pause a moment and think about, what does that mean? All right. What happens if you have fine lines and wrinkles? What does that say? And the reason that I'm saying that I'm not telling you not to do it is because I've had many people tell me there are serious consequences to some of these decisions. I had one woman who um, she was on television all the time, and she was like, if I let my hair go gray, I'll get fired, right? I've had other friends of mine who have, streaks of silver in their hair, who are single, and say, if I don't dye my hair, like, I'm not going to meet anybody because people aren't interested in dating me, because that's the first thing they think. They see the silver and they ascribe whatever to it, right? And so the idea of being precluded from opportunities for real connection is scary to me. So I dye my hair. So all of these things have consequences for sure. And all I'm saying is, before you make the decision, like, really consider, why are you making this decision? For me, I was dyeing my hair constantly because I really thought of it as grooming, right? Like, I was like, yeah, that's what you do. You shower, you brush your teeth, you dye your hair, right? It was just sort of this thing that I was doing without really interrogating it. And what I was finding was I was dyeing it more and more often. And I thought, this doesn't feel right for me. This can't be particularly healthy for me. Why am I doing it? What happens if I stop? And what I found was, the thing that I feared the most was, I don't care about looking my age, but what if people think I'm 20 years older than my age, right? And then I thought, well, what if they did? Like, what happens if they do that? What is the problem with that? And for me, I was like, then I'll tell them I'm not 75, right? I'll tell them I'm 55 and I'll keep rolling. And so for me, it was a pretty easy decision to do that. As it happens, I like my hair with silver in it more than I do with it black. So I'm good with it. But again, making those decisions, that's up to every single person, whether or not
Right.
you use injectables, whether, like, whatever. I am not here to tell people let go of all of that. But what I am saying is, just pause a second and think about whether or not what the reasons are behind why you're doing that. And if those are valid reasons to you to do it, and then make your decision from there.
That sounds wise.
Thank you.
What is the difference? We're talking a lot about women and how you might take care of yourself or use products. What's the difference between men and women aging?
Yeah, this question keeps coming up. It came up in Houston, it came up in New York last week. Um, so this is anecdotal. This is not based on any data, but my impression is that men faced ageist stereotypes and stigmas just like women do. I mean, you just have to see a couple of Viagra ads and you sort of know that, right? Or the erectile dysfunction ads and stuff like that.
Right.
So, or worrying about your dad bod. Like, there's definitely stigma for men that's aging. My suspicion, and I think there's research to back it up, but I can't put my finger on it right away. My suspicion is that women get penalized more. That there's something about men with, snow on the roof, fire in the furnace um, stereotypes that women don't have the benefit of. Sort of, men get sexier as they get older, and they, the silver fox, but you don't hear a lot of
Yeah.
silver vixen kind of things for women. So my impression is that the penalties aren't as strong, but don't be fooled. Men face it as well, for sure. Men face the are you still as virile as you were when you were younger? Are you still as athletic as you were when you were younger? Like, there are definitely some stigmas around it as well, I think, for men.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
What was one of the things, and reminder, if you have questions, throw them into the Q&A function and we will
Yeah.
get to them. Um,
Yeah.
what was something that really surprised you when you were doing all your research and having all these conversations?
Um, well, I mean, like I said, the first thing that was really surprising to me was how ageist I was, right? Thinking that I was somehow immune from it. That was really that was really one of the first ones. Another one that was really sort of freeing, I think. Um, Surprising and freeing. So the surprising thing was that I interviewed many people, like probably 24 people of various ages, and I don't actually divulge their ages in the book unless they do, because we ascribe so much meaning to age. I
Right.
didn't want that to be the case, but I will tell you the people I interviewed were anywhere from their 40s to their 80s, right? Um and the word expansive kept coming up, and like they kept talking about wanting like spirituality, they wanted more expansive spirituality or more expansive um way of looking at the world, or whatever. But the one that really sort of was freeing for me was there's a health chapter where I met with a doctor who's a nutritional neurologist, Dr. Rita Achari, who is fantastic. Yes, she's
And a
actually a
huge friend of Blue Willow.
yes, she comes to Blue Willow a lot. She's a wonderful person. She is a board certified neurologist. Um, she also happens to be she's of Indian descent, and she brings sort of the philosophies of Ayurveda to her practice. And one of the things she talked to me about food, I went to her because I was really sick and tired of trying to figure out what the hell I should eat, right? Because I kept hearing things like, oh, you should eat high protein, lots of meat. Oh, no, you should be vegetarian. Oh, no, you should be vegan. Oh, you should like be gluten free. No, you shouldn't be gluten free. You should be dairy free. Oh, like, and it was just like, what am I supposed to do? And so she actually did a full panel of blood panel on me. And one of the things she talks about in Ayurveda is she says that we all think that food is medicine, right? Like we hear that a lot, food is medicine. And she doesn't believe that, which I thought was really interesting.
That is fascinating. Yeah.
What she said was in Ayurveda, we focus on the health within us, and food is energy that nourishes your health and your wellness inside of you. If you say food is medicine, that focuses on illness, right? And instead of because it's about fixing illness. And she said,
Right.
don't think of it that way. Think of what good whole foods, whatever foods that is, whether or not it's hormone free beef, free range, local, like in season foods, and what are all the different ways that I can prepare it to nourish the health inside of me. And so that was really freeing, because when she said that, I realized that that doesn't necessarily need to apply only to nutrition, right? It can be how you nourish your mind, how you nourish your physicality, right? What if you moved, instead of thinking of punishing workouts, what if you moved joyfully to nourish your joyful wellness, physical wellness, or your joyful spiritual wellness? So that was the thing that was, I was surprising, because I didn't expect a doctor to say like that food is about not medicine, it's about wellness. And by the way, she also says that food shouldn't be a guilty pleasure, it should be a pleasure, because we are designed with taste and smell that ties
Yeah.
to memory and family and all these other things, and so we should enjoy our food. And so that was a surprise for me, that it wasn't a restrictive, it was more of an expansive way to look at that, and also a wonderful revelation on how I want to age as I get older.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
thinking about, you can even take that, is communally the right word? I don't know, but just thinking of how you want be more expansive and in connection
Yeah.
and community
Yeah.
with the people around you. I know our parents are also the same age, and the four of them are,
Oh, they're out of control. My
yeah,
parents like they travel so much. And that was something that actually came up when we did the in-person thing, right? Somebody
right.
talked about multi-generational community, right? Which is something that's really, I think, hard, um, basically because of the way we're set up. Like we do a lot of we do a lot of stuff like this, right? Where we talk with
Right.
people with through screens and that kind of thing, but sort of cultivating those friendships, maybe around a common interest, that are multi-generational, I think is a
Yes,
really, really expansive way to be.
it is. And each generation has something to contribute.
Absolutely. And that's
What,
one thing that has been really interesting, is sort of the idea, because we all think about diversity, equity, inclusion, and we think about it in terms of race, or we think of religious background or nationality or gender, but we don't really think about it with age. And I think that the world would be served better if we also included age, both young and old, because how many times I mean, if you're a person in your 20s and your 30s on here, how many times have you been told, well, you're too young to worry about that, or you're too young? Ageism cuts all ways. And
It
so
does.
really sort of understanding that every stage of life brings a gift into whatever group or community we're in, and having more of that only serves the community.
I agree. And I just think you can't underrate the value that perspective brings.
Right. Absolutely.
And it doesn't
Absolutely.
always come with age.
That's correct. That's correct. And that's one of the things that like for me that I struggle with, especially as we're coming into an election year, right? Because one of the things that you hear a lot is like, oh my God, why are all these old people running, right, for office? And understanding what ageist thinking, not because what we really want is people who are in touch with the issues of people of all
Right.
generations, and what their age is really doesn't matter, right? As long as, like, think of, for example, Bernie Sanders, who had a huge young following,
Right.
right? So like really sort of understanding about what, well, am I upset but because X person is running because they're of some age? Like, that's ageist thinking. What is it that I'm really feeling here? Oh
Right.
wait, is it because I feel like they don't really understand what kids who are graduating high school, what the issues they are, and they don't seem to have educated themselves? So that's a totally different thing, and
Right.
for sure we want that. One person actually once said, is it problematic to want more younger people to run, right, to run for office? And I was like, no, that's great, because like we're not going to live forever. And if there is a
Right.
big gap of generations coming up of people running for office and getting experience, we want more people, younger people, to run for
Exactly.
office. But it's not
Exactly.
about, it's about not disqualifying people just on the basis of age, for sure.
Exactly. And you said that thing, we have to self-interrogate ourselves
Yeah.
on so many issues.
All the issues, all
On
the
No,
issues.
but not, and I'm not just saying political issues, but on
Yeah.
how, what products we choose to use, how we choose
All
to
the
eat,
issues.
everything. Why do we choose to do this? Exactly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All the issues.
I agree. Okay, friends, you're not using the Q&A. If anyone wants to
Oh,
type a question in the chat, I am now freeing it up. You are allowed to type into the chat if you have a
yes,
question.
please talk to me. There's too many really, really familiar names on this. I'd love to hear from
Exactly.
you.
Actually, something very tangential, but what was recording the audiobook like? Did you do it here? Did you do it in your closet? Where did you do it?
Yeah, no, I did it in a studio. I actually did it at the studio where Beyonce records here in Houston.
Ooh.
I know. It was really funny. So the company that bought the audio rights for this book bought the audio rights for the Lightmakers Manifesto. And when I found out about it, they were like, "Oh, yeah, we bought the rights and we'll have an actor come and read." And I was like, "No, you won't. I'll do my own." But I had to audition. So I actually had to send an audition tape in for the Lightmakers Manifesto um to read it. And they said, "Okay, you can read, I guess." So you could do that. And so because of that, they asked me to do this one, which is great. And it took probably 4 days of, it's actually harder than you think. Like, I was hoarse by the end of the day,
Oh, I
and
bet.
there was lots of tea and honey and stuff like that in the process, but it was fun. Also like spotting like typos in the book, which was like, oh God, how did I miss that? So don't go looking for the typos, but there are a couple in there. But it was
Yeah.
fun. It's fun. Did I
Okay,
see a question come up?
yeah, we've got questions coming in. So here's one from Bridget. What does Alexis think of the book? What were your conversations with her like as you were researching and interviewing people for the book?
That's a great question. I don't think she's read the book. um, I I don't think I don't think he's read any of my books. Actually, I don't think even Marcus has read either of these books. Um, but there are certainly times when I was talking with her about like sort of her perceptions of what old looks like, like when she thinks of old, what is that age? And it's obviously younger than I think most people that age would like it to be. Like, but then you think about also, like, I think about my mother was always old, right? As in my mind, even though, she was in her 20s when I was born. But so there were little things about like what the perception of aging was really interesting with her. I think uh you know she is a person who has parents who don't let age stop them from doing things, and grandparents who are pretty much the same way, right? Like my parents and Marcus's mother for sure are people who are like, well, I'm just going to do it, right? And so I don't know that she's grown up really thinking that age was a limitation, right?
Yeah.
Um, which I think is really, really great, but also it's because that, it's rare, every now and then she'll say something like, she'll get up and she goes, "Oh, mom, I'm getting old." I'm like, "Oh, stop." Like, like you're 18, you're fine, but yeah, I think like when my mother has had health issues that are related to age, I think it comes as a shock to all of us when it happens, because that's not the way that they move through their life. And um, so that's been really good. But yeah, it's been fun. It's been really interesting.
Here's one from Catherine. How
Okay,
has Radiant Rebellion changed you or validated you? How has writing it
how's
changed
writing
you?
it?
Yeah.
Um, well, again, I've become more aware of my own ageism, which I really was feeling pretty smug about, right? When I went in, I really thought I wasn't ageist. I was like, I can't be ageist. And I mean, and it was funny because I actually saw Ashton last week, Ashton Applewhite, the woman who taught me that lesson. And I was telling her that, you sort of blew my mind with this. And she's like, "Well, Karen, um, but you know about racism, right? Like people, like you grow up in a community that's racist, like racism is everywhere." And I said, "Yes, I know that. Logically, I know that, but still it didn't really sort of hit me." So that's been really sort of really interrogating it. And I will say that like I see it everywhere now. Um, one of the things that I remember was my husband and I were watching one of those cop shows where you sort of have the wizened, experienced cop and his ingenue young detective, right? The cat detectives. And I remember it was a British show, and I remember they did a close up of the young woman, and I could see silver strands in her hair. And I remember thinking, wait, how old is she? And so I Googled the actress, and she was like 32. And I remember thinking, I don't think I've ever seen that in an American show, right? I
Yeah.
don't think I've ever seen that. And like like 2 weeks later, Mariska Hargitay and Ice-T, like she shared a picture of the two of them having their hair dyed right now. And I mean, Ice-T's in his 60s, and they're like, it was a picture of them with dye in their hair preparing for this thing. And I thought, isn't that funny? Like, it's so hard to see people like the people who you see who are my age in their mid 50s, like sort of the famous people are sort of the J-Los and the Halle Berrys, who are this sort of preternaturally young, like they have barely changed since they were in their 20s.
Right.
And I was like, how do young people see what 40, 50, 60, 70 is supposed to look like? Because either they're, you're young, especially women, right? They're either, unblemished hair and everything else, or they're impaired, right? It's like the daughter-in-law's
Yeah.
granny.
Yeah. Yeah.
What happens in between? And so that I think is probably the biggest thing. Is like I see it everywhere now, sort of how industries are, they make it so that if you're, young, even like things like and I will admit I haven't watched it, but is it the Golden Bachelor? That new show, like, which I haven't watched, which is I guess The Bachelor, but the I guess the bachelors in this one is 70 and the women are between 50 and 70. And I haven't watched it, but even sort of the premise of sort of earning this attention of a guy feels a little weird to me, because while that was certainly very important to me in my 20s, and admit it, I'm married, right? But like the things that I think that I would be drawn to in a partner have sort of evolved, right? From my
Oh,
20s to
yeah.
my 80s. And so to see a premise of a show that seems to be still premised on the
Wow.
third, it's really, really sort of interesting. So I'm constantly seeing it and questioning it more than I ever had before,
Yeah.
for
Yeah. Yeah.
sure.
Well, I haven't watched it because, as you know, all I do is watch Great British Bake Off reruns.
Fair enough.
Here we're gonna do two more, and then I want to have time to take the oath.
Yeah, we got to take an oath. We all
Okay,
have to be part of the rebellion. Yeah.
so here, this one is from Joy, who says, "Thank you for being here.
Thank
How
you,
do you
Joy.
recommend we stand up for community members who we witness being treated as other or individual or invisible?"
Yeah. So just like any other ism, I would recommend calling it out. And there are ways to do it that are really, really friendly, but also sort of show kind of where people have gone right. So like one of the things, like I said, is like, oh, you look great for your age. And I'm like, oh, I actually look my age, right? Like that, you know, or you don't look your age. Um, Ashton says when people say you look great for you look great for your age to her, she always says, and you look great for your age, right? Like sort of like put it back so that people kind of go, whoa, wait a minute, that does sound kind of
Yeah,
odd or weird or make that but and also like just you know that questioning thing. Oh, I don't think X should be running for office. She's too old, right? Like, well, what does that mean? What do you mean she's too old? Well, but look at her age. Well, what does that have to do with anything? Has she failed to do her job? Has she not shown up? Like, and then even if they are like, we've had some people in the news who've had spells where it looks like they might be impaired. Understanding that that's not age, that's impairment, right? And a lot of the things that we fear about with aging are very much ableists as well. Like there's a certain amount of ableism that's involved in there too, right? So like
absolutely.
really being understanding about what is it that you're getting really specific about, what is it that you're reacting to, and is it ageist or is it something that you just need to be more specific around? Like sort of like job postings that say familiarity with tech, right? Which as code for younger, as opposed to saying a working knowledge of this software program, this software program, this software, and getting really, really specific, right?
Right.
And sort of really sort of unpacking some of the language that you see around it, and just asking the question, right? Like just like, well, what did you mean by that? And just sort of, gently pointing it out, I think is a lot of the ways we can do
Yeah,
that.
I think you're right. And then here's one more from Trina.
Uh-huh.
Do you think women impose more age restrictions on each other than men do? She has an example.
Oh, okay.
When I got my septum pierced at 52 as a social experiment with my class, other women were so critical. When I started drum lessons last year, it was the same. Oh my gosh, but that's amazing, Trina. Younger people thought it was great. Men thought it was great. Women were the only ones who were actually critical or confused.
Yeah. Um, I will say I'm trying to think of how to answer that question. I think I do think that we women generally have lots of rules for what's appropriate that we tend to impart on each other that or men presenting don't really care about, like, oh, she's too old to wear a miniskirt or what, like that kind of thing. I think we do a lot of. Um, what's interesting, however, so I mentioned that I stopped dyeing my hair. I stopped probably around age 54. And I and I can't go anywhere without somebody commenting on my hair now. And I would say, like, people saying, oh my God, I love your hair. And I would say it is equally women and men, which I think is really interesting because it's just hair. Like there's nothing particularly fantastic about my hair, but I think it's more the fact that I'm clearly not in my 80s and I'm yet very comfortable with having silver hair, and it's sort of that comfort that people are reacting to. So then it is actually the color of my hair. So I don't Jet, I know Jet Bridget, who's on here, has this amazing purple hair. And so like I imagine it's what I experience is probably very similar to what she experiences when people go, oh my God, I love your hair. It's not, although her hair is beautiful, but it's not just the color. It's more, I love that you move through life with the sort of
Right.
confidence to do that. But yeah, I think so. And I'm really sort of getting very clear on what's important for you and what's not important to you. Like a septum ring. Like, do you really care if other people hate your septum ring? Like, y'all will be fine. I'm gonna go walk with my septum ring. I'll be fine. Y'all will be fine with myself. My mother was like, "Are you sure you want to color your hair? You're so young. What does your husband think?" I'm like, "He'll be fine. I'm just gonna go with my hair the way it is." So, for sure.
I'm often reminded of a video my sister sent me years ago of a probably a 4 or 5 year old trying to do her seatbelt, and her dad is asking her questions, and she finally says to him, "Worry about yourself." Just drive.
Exactly right.
Worry
So,
about
by the way,
yourself.
I just want to say
Just
this,
drive.
you can see this going down, y'all. This is non-alcoholic. I just want to be really clear that I'm not just sucking down alcohol tonight. I promise.
Exactly. Exactly. So before we end with my last question for you,
Yeah,
let's all
we're
join
going
the
to take the
rebellion.
oath. Are you all ready
I'm
to
ready to
join the
join
vote?
again.
Okay, so everybody, if you look at the bottom of your screen, it might be under more, you'll see something that says raise hand, a little button that says raise hand at the bottom of your screen. If everybody could, there we go. I see a couple going up. Raise your hand
Oh, look at that
because we're going to
number.
take the whole, look at all those. Yep, raise your hands. Perfect. Okay, and repeat after me what in your mind, because I can't hear you. All right, and we're going to take the oath. We believe, go ahead, you got Kathy, you do it with me. We
We
believe
we believe
in defining who we are
in defining who we are
and who we are to be.
and who we are to be.
We are the authors
We are the authors
of our own biographies.
of our own biographies.
We trust growing older
We trust growing older
is more expansive
is more expansive
than the world would have us believe.
than the world would have us believe.
We commit to speaking
We commit to speaking
with age-positive kindness
with age-positive kindness
and respect.
and respect.
We believe in nourishing
We believe in nourishing
the health within us.
the health within us.
Joyful movement is our way.
Joyful movement is our way.
We approach life
We approach life
with a sense of adventure,
with a sense of adventure,
and we believe
and we believe
in a kaleidoscopic, light-filled future
light-filled future
to come.
to come.
To the rebellion, everybody.
To the rebellion.
There we go. I'm so thrilled y'all came. Y'all are officially, and by the way, don't forget, if you buy books from Blue Willow, you will get yourself your official membership pin, right? For the thing.
I have
So,
mine.
yeah.
I have mine. I wear it when I do all my school visits. It's on
There
my
you go.
lanyard.
Perfect.
And you'll also get the QR code that takes you to the amazing playlist, which I cannot recommend enough.
Yeah, thank you.
It's so good.
It's a great banger of a playlist. Not something you want to listen to while you're working because you're gonna dance.
I tried. It did not. I did a lot of chair dancing that day, but it's still, you know, it's a great driving playlist.
It is a good driving playlist.
Also a great walking playlist.
Yes, for sure.
but we always close our events with asking authors a question, which is, tell us a book of your heart.
So I love books, and I have many heart books, but what I'm reading a lot of recently is Ross Gay, who is somebody who is as committed to joy as I am. So I will recommend The Book of Delights by Ross Gay.
That is amazing. We love it so much. It's on the shelf at Blue Willow Bookshop right now. If we run out, we'll order more. We're happy to do it. Yep. It's distributed at Penguin Random House, so we can get it speedy quick. But really, everybody, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It was so joyful. Karen, thank you so much for your work. I'm so grateful to you because you have changed how I look at the world.
Oh, I love that. I love hearing that. Thank you so much. And you know what? Happy birthday, everybody. Thank you guys so much for being here. It's just so lovely seeing all your names and faces and raised hands and questions and everything. So thank you so much.
It was pure joy. Everyone have a great evening and stay warm if you're in Texas. Stay warm.
Yeah, amen. Bye, everybody.
Bye, y'all.